Right, guys, welcome. Welcome to the second episode of my podcast series, which is From Struggle to Strength for men's mental health talk. So obviously, my name's James Roffey. Class myself as a mental health PT. And for people that are new to this and new to me, obviously my journey started nearly 20 years ago when I had an eating disorder that lasted for 10 years. And since then, like 8 or 9 years into my recovery journey, I've managed to come out the other side and learn a lot about positive habits, switching my mindset round and trying to be a force of good, I guess, going forward, sharing my experience and helping others. And obviously that's what led me to be an online coach. But obviously one of the most important things that I found along my journey and sharing my story is that everybody has a story. Everyone that you follow, everyone that follows you, everyone that's in your social circle, they all have stories to tell. And obviously it's a massive thing for guys to be open and honest about their issues, any problems that they've had in the past, and try and be as open and honest as possible. So obviously the first episode I did was with my dad, like the parents' view of my eating disorder. But I've got the pleasure of having Dave with me, who we have been on social media friends for probably at least 5 years now. And I think it's something that what I just said is typified by our relationship. It's only been in the last probably year or so that we've openly spoke about both sides of our mental health journey. And from what I've been through and obviously what we're going to hear from Dave today, it's a honestly remarkable story. So yeah, Dave, welcome. And
thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, see, I really appreciate it. It's obviously it's been a long time coming. We've had it in the pipeline for probably the last 6 months, and work, life, holidays have got in the way, but we're finally here. So, yeah, if you want to introduce yourself to the people, and obviously just start with a little bit of a backstory, and then we'll delve into things.
Okay, so my name's David Ellis. I'm 51 years of age. I'm originally from Romford, Essex. And my addiction was due to things that I went through in my previous and early days life with being a child and sort of where I am now, which we'll cover. And my addiction was alcohol and Class A drugs, cocaine, pills, etc. So the reason why obviously we're reaching out now is because next week I am 10 months clean of everything, cocaine, alcohol, everything. It's a story I never thought I'd actually be able to speak about because I never thought I'd ever achieve it. The journey's been long. The losses have been great. But I feel like I've got a new lease of life. And, I started a sobriety page, which I've got to be honest, the social media side of things, like yourself and other people that have reached out, that's what's really helped me get to where I am today. I'm not cured. I'm not going to say I'm cured because an alcoholic always has to be an alcoholic. But I'm taking every day, one day at a time, trying to find new goals, new things to look forward to. And yeah, this is what's brought me to where I am now.
That's incredible. I think something you said is quite poignant. I think it's one of the questions that I've been asked over many years about, like, do you ever recover? Are you ever fully recovered from an addiction or mental health issues? And I try and be as honest and transparent as possible. It's like, are you ever fully recovered? I don't think you can even answer it. But to me, I just think with the progress that you make within yourself mentally, and obviously what you do, put in coping mechanisms in place, essentially it's that you learn to cope better. Your coping strategies help you from not delving back into that cycle of self-sabotage and the things that you almost become accustomed to. So yeah, it's almost like one of them things that you ever truly recovered? I don't think you can ever definitively answer it, but you just learn to put things in place to keep you on a level, and you have that self-awareness as part of your progress and your recovery, that that when things start to dip, you can delve into your network of people, you can delve into your coping mechanisms and double down on all of them just to try and see you through like rough patches, because life is never linear. See the kind of phrase that I always use, which is children cover your ears, but it's always like life is always going to fuck you up the arse. It's like no matter what happens, life is never linear, and life is beautiful, but you have to take the rough with the smooth. And I think it's very much life is just a continuous journey of ups and downs. And
It's
yeah,
peaks and troughs, isn't it, all the time? It's,
100%. So
yeah. And I
yeah,
think the word you used earlier, sabotage, that's basically what I used to class it as. It was like I got to myself to a point in my life where work's great, life's great, kids are great, grandkids are great, wherever I am in the stage of my life. And then I used to just go out. And what I used to do in the days of my addiction were catastrophic. I mean, I used to sort of go out there and think I didn't deserve this, and I used to go out and drink myself into basically like a coma. I used to take so many sort of pills at the time, or sniff cocaine, whatever it was, and it didn't matter where I was. I mean, something that started recreational, which was back in the days when I was younger, effectively where I thought I had control of the drugs and the alcohol, effectively took control of my life, and it became a situation where I couldn't go a day without a line, couldn't go a day without a drink. And then when it came to weekends, I got myself into such a state that I was waking up in hospitals or in a park on the park bench somewhere. It got really bad where it cost me a lot. It did cost me a lot.
I say I can from my I probably spoke about this quite a few times. Obviously, I can completely relate to that, but on a completely different level. I think that's why it's important, like for guys talking about this. I think like the way that I speak about it is that mental health is the root of the tree, and obviously all the branches that come off of it, eating disorder, like alcohol dependency, drug addiction, anxiety, depression, like they're all branches. But I think the root of the tree, there are so many relatable things that you do that probably everybody does. It's just they have a different vice or they
Yeah,
have different mental illness. Like that thing about the self-sabotage thing, it was like if I was like if I hadn't, obviously my thing was obviously making myself sick, and it was like usually it was up to like 50 times a day. And it's a bit like a smoker. Like if I went a few days, and it was only like 20 times a day, then it's like it's still crazy bad, but nowhere near as bad. And it was like how I would celebrate that would almost be literally having a blowout. I would wait for my parents to go out, or I'd go out for a social gathering, go up to my dad's mum, who was in London at the time, and I would just plan an absolute fucking blowout whereby I would have all this food planned that I'm going to eat, and it's almost like I've banked up like a week of being really good,
yeah,
and like, but for no reason. It was just like you said, like there was no cognitive thinking behind it. It's almost like I was a week into like breaking that cycle and seeing the benefit of it because I felt better in myself. I was cognitively, I was functioning better. I was probably engaging in conversations more. And then it was just, like you said, there was no real thought process behind it. It was just, fuck it.
yeah.
Right.
It's like in your head, you feel like you've suddenly got control of the situation because of everything you spoke about. You start feeling a lot stronger in your mind. You've been off it for a week or not doing what you've been doing for a week. You feel like you've got a bit of control. You feel a bit happier. And then all of a sudden, you think to yourself, okay, I can do this. I've got control of it. From my point of view, it was like, I can have one line. I won't have 2, 3, 4, 10, 20. I
Yeah.
can have, it won't lead to 2, 3, 4, 10, 20. But it never happened with me, and that's when it always went wrong. Was as soon as I felt, okay, look, going to the gym, I'm feeling better, I'm not taking it every day, I'm not an addict, I'm not an alcoholic. What are people talking about? Yeah.
Mm.
And then it's like you go out, and with my lifestyle, my mum and dad own pubs. Yeah. So from my
Okay.
mum gave birth to me on the public bar floor of her own pub. We used to have a drink and have a joke and sort of say, Christ, you couldn't even hold your waters, Gloria. Do you know what I mean? Talking about my mum when it came to, giving birth to me in the old pub, let alone drink. But I was just surrounded by alcohol and drugs my whole life,
Mm.
from the 6 or 7 when I used to go in the public bar of my mum's pub. People were doing cocaine then, people that I knew for years, that, because my mum used to have a pub before we moved 10, 12, 15 years. And it's like, when you're growing up in North London and you see this all the time, it sort of becomes a norm.
Yeah,
And then,
it's socially acceptable, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
is. And to me, it just seemed natural. But then, obviously, my dad was a serious alcoholic. Couldn't go a day. I mean, he used to carry a hip flask around with him, with gin in it, and always said to me, I was going to amount to nothing. Always brought me down. Very physical with my mother, and my mother, physical with my father as well. And you go through those traumas, and then I remember one time, I was about 5 years old. We used to have these caravans in Skegness, and I was about 6, 7 years old, and my dad left me in the arcade with some money. Said he'd be back in an hour, and that was nearly a whole day he left me for, because the people in the club that was actually after the arcades used to have this like adults club, kids club sort of thing. They had put me on a chair, put a jacket over me, because obviously it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and they carried me back to my caravan because they
God.
knew obviously my family were. And my dad was in there unconscious, drunk, forgot all about me, So, the childhood was hard. And then he got cancer. Wasn't given very long to live. I was about 11 then. And my mum couldn't look after me and my dad, who was bedbound. So she sent me to boarding school, And the one good thing I remember my dad ever saying to me was, he was obviously with a cane, finding it hard to walk. He came to this school to have a look, and he turned to me and he said, "Son, I don't want you to come here." And that was on a Friday. The following Friday, my dad was rushed off to hospital. The last vision I had was him in an ambulance. He died in the ambulance. That was the Friday. On the Sunday, I still had to go to the boarding school because I had to settle in. I had to unpack. My mum had to, leave me there. I had to go to school on the Monday. This is, a few days after losing my father. Go through that week, and you know what it's like. The teachers tell the kids, try not to be too hard on him. He's just lost his dad,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And, my mum said that school would be the best days of my life. Well, let me tell you something, they were the worst days of my life, And the following Friday, my mum picked me up. I had to go to my dad's funeral. I was allowed to stay there till Saturday. And then on Sunday, my mum had to take me back to school. So within the space of a week, I had to lose my father, go to boarding school, settle in for a week, go to my dad's funeral, and then 2 days later go back to school and sit in the classroom on Monday like nothing's happened.
Christ.
And that was really hard for me, Even though my dad and I didn't have the best relationship, that did mess me up a little bit, I'm not going to lie. And then, you go through stages where you get picked on. A lot of kids probably go through this, and then, effectively that sort of like turned my mum into like my mum, my dad, and my best friend, And
Yeah.
unfortunately, boarding school in my day, do you know what I mean? It was cane, slipper, Dunlop trainer, meter ruler. You used to get all the physicalities if you was naughty. And yeah, they, when you talk about certain things, that's what I used to struggle with. It was always the fact that I never felt good enough because of my father, because he always said that I was going to amount to nothing, achieve nothing. And then my mum met, few years after my dad died, an ex-professional rugby player called Stuart. He used to play for Wakefield. He used to play number 9, so he was a big lad, 6'4", very well built. And he was lovely. And I thought, I've finally got a father figure that, I can say, go on, say something. I've got a dad at home. He's built like a brick shit house. Sorry about my language.
Yeah.
And then moved into the pub with my mum and I, and he started drinking. And then he turned into the most violent man you could ever imagine. And he broke bones on my body, broke bones on my mother's body. The amount of time he broke my mum's nose, cheekbones, broke her arm. And that was hard to see. You know what I mean? For years, he was doing it for years. And then one day he turned on me and he broke my arm, broke my jaw, broke my eye socket, pushed me through a glass door. And this is all before, the age of 15. I'm going for, but again, it became a norm because,
You
there's
didn't
no
know
one
the difference.
going to do. And I remember saying to my mum one day, I said to her, like, "Mum, why do you go through this?" And she said, "Because I thought you needed a father figure in your life." So she went through all that abuse and physicality and everything else from a man nearly twice her size because she thought I needed a father figure. And I've got to be honest, that messed me up, really messed me up. And then, I did what most kids, that went through probably what I went through, and I turned to crime. And I got involved with the wrong people. and I did that for a few years. And then, I don't know, the best thing happened to me. I became a father at 19, had a boy. And that sort of changed my life massively, settled down, got married. And then effectively I lost my mother. She died of cancer. And that's when it all went really wrong, because not only did I lose my mum, I lost my best friend, I lost my soulmate. I mean, literally, we told each other everything. And that's when the drugs and the alcohol got hold of me, and it became a daily thing, and it cost me my marriage, nearly cost me the relationship with my son. And I ended up on the streets. Once I went through the divorce and everything, I ended up on the streets for a few weeks, until a friend of mine took me in. And sounds like a soft story. It's not, but I'm just trying to.
No, mate, that's like I I didn't know all this. This is it's good on you for talking about this. This is like,
I've got to be honest, I'm sort of struggling a little bit with it, because, like I was saying earlier, this is the first time I've sort of spoken about this sober.
yeah. I really appreciate you doing this. I said, and obviously, if you need to take a time, then take your time. It's just this is why there's like beauty in it as well. There's so much strength in what you're doing, and I anyone listening to this would feel the exact same way. If you're constantly surrounded by that sort of behavior, you're inevitably going to turn to it, because it's like it's become the social norm. Everything around you, people drink, people take drugs. So where if you were almost like ring fenced away from that, you would see it more of like I can't do that, that's naughty, or like whatever. But if you've been almost like indoctrinated into your life, no wonder why you saw that as your coping mechanism, because your family, your friends, your peers, anybody you knew was doing that behavior. So it's like there's almost like there's no real fault of your own in any of this. And like the relationship you have with your mum, I'm very fortunate I've still got my parents. But how when we spoke off camera about your mum, that is literally the relationship I have with my dad. Obviously, like, I love my mum and I'm incredibly close to my mum, but I think through all the shit that I went through, my dad, I think you like that saying, like you grow through what you go through. I think you create that bond with that person that is like your go-to. And I know that I have what you've experienced. I unfortunately, like everyone has to go through that experience. I've got that experience to come, and I know that despite the shit that I've been through since I've got myself sorted, and obviously the whole reason why the resilience program, obviously like my online coaching is it was called that because of, since I got myself sorted, there's been multiple setbacks along the way, but I've always said that losing my parents would be like my biggest test. I think there's nothing else I can see in my life losing them that would it would be the closest thing that would ever test me for going back. So like you said, it's seemingly like you had the childhood, the difficult times, and then almost like there was a little bit of light, and then down, a little bit of light, and then way down. And it's just like you said, it's just I think there are so many guys, and then not just guys, just anyone that is listening to this, that probably it may not be the exact same, but like we said earlier, like life is never linear. And I think you telling that story, I think there's going to be so many people that are going to relate to the ups and downs, and you go through shit, you come out the other side, you seemingly are on that path up the ladder in life, and then bam, like back down. And I just think, like, honestly, like, sharing that is fucking brave, like really brave.
The was, obviously going through that, I mean, it was massive for me to lose her. Do you know what I mean? It's weird because I talk about losing my mum more than I talk about losing my father. I mean, the weird thing is, my dad died when I was 11, and I didn't grieve for my father. And I'm this is the honest truth. I didn't grieve for my father until I was 23. I was 23, and I remember like it was yesterday. And we moved, and I found all these old photos, and I don't remember my dad ever showing me love. Yeah, I don't ever remember him saying anything nice to me or anything, apart from that last day when I said to you that, he said he didn't want me to go to that school. But I found these photos, And up until the age of about 1.5, 2 years old, yeah, every photo of me was in my father's arms. And I don't know, I just broke down. I mean, I cried. I mean, I didn't just blubber. I mean, I cried like a proper from the heart cried, because I'd never seen these photos. But it was like, I don't know, when I got to the age where I could maybe walk or talk, or I became a little bit independent, he lost complete interest in me. Or maybe because the alcohol, took hold of him, and he didn't have the opportunity to do what I'm doing now, talking to you, because in those days, my dad was 54 when I was born. My mum was 35, so in 1972 I was born. My dad was already 54.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
so at the end of the day, he came from a totally different time. And I sort of, now I've gone through what I've gone through in my life. It's like I'm slowly forgiving him for being the man he was.
Yeah.
And even though I went through the abuse with, my stepfather sort of thing, I say to him now, like, well, thank you. It sounds mad. Like, he battered the shit in my mother to unbelievable, standards. I mean, unbelievable standards. But it made me the man I am today, where I talk to my son 2, 3 times a day. We're best friends. We go out karting. We go on holiday together. I've got 2 beautiful grandsons from him.
Mm.
And because of what I went through when I was a child, he never went through that. You know, he always knew he had a father that loved him, always, and still does.
I think that's testament to you as a man yourself, to know that you, if you carried on playing the victim mentality, you'd have the perfect alibi for you
Mm.
to do what your dad did, and obviously stepdad, and you'd have the perfect reason to do that. But you like, fuck that. I want to be that change. I want to be the change in the world. I don't want anyone to have to go through the shit I've been through, and I don't want anyone. Well, your son, your grandson, you want to give them everything that you potentially missed out on. And I think
Yeah.
that's a mark of you. That's a mark of you as a man, to almost not like bury your children from pain, but it's almost like they're going to experience pain in their own way in their life, and it's like
Mhm.
for you to not instill what you had to go through onto them. I think
Yeah.
that takes a lot. That takes a lot.
The thing is, it wasn't always perfect, because obviously the drink and the drugs still led into the time when my son was born. And my son knows everything about my past, everything there is to know. And the trouble I got in with the police, and the fact of the cocaine. I got heavily involved with cocaine, massively. And I've always had this open relationship with him, where he knows everything inside and out. The sort of relationship I had with my mother. I just didn't want anything hidden between us.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm honest, he's got a very strong woman with him, and she sort of heard all the stories, because you can't help but to take the stories with you. My nickname is Disco Dave. You're not Disco Dave because you sit at home, knitting a jumper or something.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
Dave because you're out partying, and you're like, loud and lively, and you get yourself in a bit of trouble. And she turned to me one day, and I was so nervous. I got drunk. I mean, that's how pathetic I was. You know what I mean? The first time I was going to meet my daughter-in-law, and I was absolutely out of my nut. And I could see my son's face when he was walking towards me, because they were living in Clacton at the time. And rather than normal, fathers, they walk up, "How you doing? Whatever. So lovely to meet you for the first time." Blah blah blah. I just picked her up, threw her over my shoulder. Do you know what I mean? Started running down the road with her. That was how stupid I was, and that was her first memory of me. And then when we got to know each other better, and she found out a little bit more about me and everything else, and she saw the relationship between me and my son. She just basically come up to me and she said, "Look, I'm going to love you, like your son loves you. You can be a father to me. I can be a daughter that you never had to you. But if you mess up, or if you do anything, like what you was in the past, you'll never see your grandchildren." And
mm.
that's how direct she was with me. That's a simple way of saying it. And, it might sound a bit harsh, do you know what I mean? But I started to fix up, I started to, I don't know, see the fact of, I'll give you a scenario, yeah? A friend of mine said to me many years ago, if your kids left home and you took all the distractions out of your life, the TVs, the PlayStations, the pubs, whatever it was, and it was just you and your partner, do you have enough in common, yeah, to stay together for another 25, 30 years? And my honest answer was no, because me and my ex-wife, we didn't have that much in common apart from my son. Then when my son leaves home, you become obsolete as a father. They don't need you as much. You're not
Yeah.
school. You're not having to buy them football boots. You're not having to give them pocket money. You're not having to have a little moan at them because they're being a bit cheeky. You're not having to go and pick them up from any events or anything. You're not needed because they become independent.
Yeah.
And I struggled with that. But now I have two beautiful grandsons that love me, you know what I mean? And they do need me, and they need their granddad. And when I went out with a friend of mine, this is how my sobriety really happened. I mean, I was talking to you, my missus that I'm with now, she got me on the right path, very strong woman, and she put up with a lot, me disappearing at nights, like I said, ending up in hospital, falling asleep in flower beds. That's how drunk I was getting, where I was not understanding where I was, losing my glasses, losing my phone, losing my keys, waking up in the morning with beer fear, looking at my knuckles because I can't remember the previous night. I'm looking at my knuckles to see if I've got in a fight, because that's how, blacked out I used to get.
Yeah.
And then, I'd get the anxiety. I think it was 3 times in sort of the space of 6 months, I had an ambulance coming out because I thought I was having a heart attack. I fell over in front of my son, hit my head on the table. I was watching some movie and I just suddenly got cold sweats, headaches. I was feeling shaky. I stood up, fell over, hit my head on the table. And this was when I was calm and chilled. But it was the anxiety, it was the panic attacks I was getting, the palpitations, the fear of dying. It was real. And then I felt stupid because when the ambulance people came out, they were like, "You've had a major panic attack." And evidently a panic attack does mimic things
Yeah.
of like a stroke or a heart
Yeah.
attack. So I'm starting to understand this. And this is, even though I had this knowledge in my head, the following weekend or the following few days, I was out sniffing and drinking and whatever, because I'm surrounded by people that, "Come on, disco, this, blah, 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 let's do this." And, you think, "Oh, I have one, I'll be all right." But then
Yeah.
it was gone as soon as you take that first one. And then she took me to this spiritual therapist, and I'm very open-minded. I'll try anything. And I was like, "Okay, let's give it a go." And I go to knock on this door, private house, normally a sort of 3-4 hour thing. And he sat me down. There's cameras everywhere. There's mics everywhere. It's, like a real live thing. And he sat there and he just sat in a chair opposite me, like you're doing tonight. And he said, "Tell me about yourself." And he didn't have a script. He didn't have, all these questions lined out like therapists that I've been to in the past and
Yeah.
paid a lot of money for. Yeah, were just talking to me like a script. He actually wanted to get to know me. And I basically told him the story, told him, what happened and everything else. And then he just told me to lay down on this sofa, and he, prepped me and started, speaking to me in a very sort of soothing voice. And he got me to apologize to my mother. He got me to accept my father. He got me to understand what Stuart did when he used to beat me and my mum to a pulp. Now, it sounds mad. I know it does. Saying it out loud to you right now sounds mental. I'm talking to dead people, yeah, lying on a stranger's sofa, and pouring my heart out. And then all of a sudden he puts me into a deep sleep. And I felt like I was gone for hours. And then I wake up, and this 4 hour session turned into nearly a 7 hour session. And he gave it all to me, the recordings, the mics. He said, "Watch it one day." I haven't watched it. My partner now, she's watched it. But I would recommend that to anyone. Do you know what I mean? Just to go and see someone and just have a bloody good blowout.
I think obviously what he was doing was, obviously it was making you not have all this pent up aggression and pent up like hate for people. And if you have forgiveness for someone, there's no reason to feel that burden. And obviously that burden could be the thing that triggers you into a relapse. Obviously it's like if you have that self acceptance, like within yourself, you own your own shit. Like, that you've done wrong, you're righting them wrongs now. And obviously again, forgiving other people shit as well. I think that gives you that, not clear conscience, but you don't have the anger and the hatred and that pent up, like, if you were
Self-loathe.
it. No, and I think like that. I'm guessing that's what it is. It's to almost reset you back, just to, like, I don't say normal, because what is normal, but I'm saying, like, to not have them emotions and hold grudges, because if you hold grudges, that's where that emotion comes in, and then what does emotion do? It can make you do things that are potentially volatile for your mental health and for the people around you. So I think, yeah, obviously that's a really good way of approaching stuff. It's a way of you dealing with things, obviously far better than probably the generic specialist that you would go to through GPs and stuff. So yeah.
And that was the thing. It's the thing that when you're going through this addiction, and when you're doing, whatever your addiction is, or whatever your mental health issue is, it's the fact that you don't realize the effect you have on people around you. You
No.
know, the fact is, you might look at your wife or your partner and you think, yo, you're looking tired, babe. Do you know what I mean? And she's looking tired. She's having to put up with my shit all the time. I don't think it. Do you understand? It's like, you're lying in your missing day. You might not go to work. You might not worry about the normal things, because all you do is just think about your next line or your next drink or whatever it is. You don't care about people around you. You're like, what's your problem? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's the people around you that you're affecting.
Yeah, and I think I think that's the thing that's massive. I think, like, obviously there's this big movement now for mental health and getting everybody talking, which is really good. And obviously there's a lot of help out there for the individuals, but I don't think there's not enough support out there for the greater circle of that person. Obviously, because if you have
victims to the addiction, isn't it? I mean, they're
yeah
victims, aren't they? I mean, let's be
yeah
honest. They're
yeah,
victims.
so they have to. They may not go through it like personally, but they have to deal with all that shit on a daily basis, and they don't have anybody to turn to. There's no specialist help for them. It's basically deal with it or leave. Like,
Yeah,
there are literally only two choices, and I think, like you said, I think what you just said there. It took me probably like 3 or 4 years into, like, my recovery until I actually had that chat with my parents, and it was just like, I think it's because obviously at the time you are so. It's not so much that you are inherently selfish and inherently, but it's that you're wrapped up in your own head with your addictions, and that nothing else is a priority apart from the line, the food, the prepping, the planning of what you want to do, your next fix, your next binge, however, whatever that vice is. I think it's all consuming. And I think, like you said, like your normal thought pattern, your rationale just completely goes out the window because you are consumed by your addiction. And I think, like you said, and then that's where there's like, you don't understand why your partner or your parents are fucking on you. So you clash with them. You can't see what you're doing to other people, and it's not because you are. It's what it does to you. It strips away that consciousness that you have for other people. Like normally, like you and I today, you would know that if I'm being a dick and to my missus, she's got every right to be pissed off, angry, distant. Whereas obviously, like, when you're wrapped up with shit and you don't know what you're doing, it's like, why are you distant? Why are you being rude to me? It's like,
yeah,
and it's like, it's almost like you play the victim. It's like, but in reality, you're the instigator.
yeah,
And I say it took me ages to realize that, and it's just like, obviously I got myself sorted, which was all good, but there was still like skeletons in the closet that needed to be addressed, and it was like having that sit down chat with my mum and dad, and obviously the podcast that I did with my dad was like, Christ Almighty, it was this, like, what the effect that you have on other people, and you have no idea. You have no idea until you've managed to come out the other side and you reach that level of, like, self-actualization, however you want to call it, or that progress within yourself when you are open and you're being able to perceive what other people are telling you about what you've done to yourself, and it's just
yeah,
like, Christ Almighty, like, and it's hard because you say that you say sorry, and it's like, it's hard to, like, you mean it because you've got yourself sorted, and it's just like, yeah, like, I am sorry, there's nothing I can do, I can't go back to change it. All you can do, like your son's wife, obviously,
yeah,
like, all you can do is don't fuck up again. Like,
Yeah.
don't make the same mistakes. If you've reached that point now where you are at that level where you're self-aware, for the sake of your own health, your own relationship with your body and your mind, and obviously your partner, your son, your daughter-in-law, like all these things, that they are continuous reasons to stay on the straight and narrow and do as much as you can. You want to you
Actually, she's actually one of my biggest supporters now. I mean, the beautiful thing about it is it's the fact that we have such an amazing relationship where, she'll phone me or I'll phone her, without any other excuse. It's not about the kids. She was just like the other day, she hadn't heard of me from a few days, and she just phoned me up just because she wanted to have a chin wag. Do you know what I mean? And just see how I am. I think obviously she still worries. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes in the back of her mind, but she's the first person to say to me, "Dave, I'm proud of you. Can't believe what you've achieved. Can't believe you're nearly 10 months." I mean, my first month into my sobriety, and she bought me like a cake and a card, and she made a real big deal about it, which was massive because
That's cool.
I feel good about myself. It
Yeah,
made me feel doing something, and not just that. It was weird because for years, people have been telling me, sort yourself out, get off the drugs, get off the drink. Nothing's going to come of it. You're going to lose everything. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I've worked, you know what I mean? I've always supplied for my family. We had nice houses, stuff like that. It wasn't like I was, struggling in life, but I led a double life.
mm.
And eventually that double life I led destroyed everything I had to the point I had nothing. So, for me to go through this, it was crazy. And then all of a sudden, even though I've tried therapy and the spiritual therapists and stuff like that, and I've had family and friends telling me, it was crazy because a friend of mine that I hadn't spoken to in 10 years, he was actually the best man of my wedding. And we fell out because when I went through my divorce, he sort of took my ex-wife's side, which I thought that's a bit crazy because he's always been my friend, you know what I mean?
Mm.
So I was a bit sort of worried about, why is he not talking to me no more? He was the one that I used to go out with drinking and sniffing and doing all the stuff with. He thought I was the best thing since sliced bread. But all of a sudden after the divorce, he was, sort of sneaking around there and, sort of trying to be a shoulder for maybe my ex to sort of cry on, if you know what I mean. But anyway, we rekindled. He reached out one Christmas. I put something on Facebook, and I didn't do it as a friend thing. It went out as a public thing, and he put a little comment underneath. And we met up, and we went out and we got drunk, and I ended up doing cocaine, and he went back because he had a child, and I stayed out and ended up chatting to these traveller fellas. Do you know what I mean? And it went on till 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm standing in a forecourt of a petrol station in Slough, and I'm sniffing cocaine off my knuckles with 3 absolute strangers. I mean, they're travellers. They're the biggest lumps you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Proper, and what am I doing? So I ended up driving home, again, taking risks. And the next day I'm hanging, feeling sorry for myself, feeling a bit anxious, feeling like a bit, anxiety coming on and all that. And then the day after, my friend phones me up and he's like, "Oh, Dave, it was like we never seen each other." He said it was brilliant, had such a good night. And I sat there and I thought to myself, hold on, mate, that means I've not changed in 10 years. Do you know what I mean? And I swear to you, James, from that day, which was, the 25th of January 2023, I have not touched one sip of alcohol, and I have not touched 1 ounce or gram or anything of any class A drug, nothing. And I started a sobriety page, and the rest is history. I've got to be honest though, don't get me wrong, I have blips. Like a little while ago I had a blip where I was so close where I thought, I need a drink, I need a beer, because I'm down by the coast. I live near bars everywhere. My job, entails me taking out clients, which involves drink, stuff like that. My whole life has been surrounded by alcohol and drugs, my whole life. So it has been hard, but I've learned to actually now understand that it's not so much the alcohol and the drugs, it's actually me. And the difference is where before I didn't have the strength to battle my mind, where now I have the strength to actually
Yeah.
take hold of my thoughts. And this is really important because I'm not sure if I told you the story, but I went to the gym a few months ago and I did this circuit on the running machine. And I've done this 45-minute circuit all the time, no problem, no problem, no problem. Yeah, it was something I built myself into, gets me into a nice sweat, and then I do other bits and pieces. And there was this one day, and I'm running. I've got 15 minutes to go, and I'm having an argument with myself. And it reminded me of the arguments I used to have with myself about doing drink and cocaine and everything else. And my mind and in myself, it's telling me to get off with 15 minutes to go. And I'm like, I've done this 50, 60 times. I know I can finish this circuit. Why am I telling myself to get off? And I'm having an argument with myself whilst running on this running machine to say, no, Dave, you can finish it. You've finished it many times. And I finished the circuit. And the point of what I'm trying to say is it's the fact that now I'm strong enough to say, I don't want a beer. I don't want to sniff that line. Even though I'm still surrounded by people that are doing it, the fact that I'm nearly 10 months clean in my sobriety has given me not just the fact I've lost 10 kilos in weight, 10 kilograms in weight, yeah? So I've gone from like 106 point something down to 94 point something. I feel healthier, I look healthier, and I'm stronger in the mind.
Yeah. And that shit's addictive, isn't it?
And that's what it is. It's not the fact that it was the cocaine and everything else. It was the fact that I was the addiction. And everything that I did in my life, even if I'm your friend, I'm either your best friend or you're nothing. There was never a middle with me. And that's
all or nothing. Yeah.
all or nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the fact that my mind is now strong enough to deal with it.
I think that's it. I think that's what it is. It's whether like mental illness or addiction is something that's like born into us, or it's something that it's picked up and nurtured, or we pick something up through trauma or whatever. But I think, like you said, that the only way to deal with it is you can have all the therapy in the world. It's like you have to find that switch. Yeah. It's that when whatever, there is no set answer. I think because if you could make some cookie cutter program, you'd be probably one of the richest men in the world, because there'd be no mental health problems. And obviously that there is no right or wrong way of dealing with things. You need to find your way. And it may be that you have to try 1,000,001 things and 1,000,001 things fail. And then you try that last one, and it's the one thing that you just go, fuck, I get it now. Yeah. And it could be anything. Obviously, like with me, it was exercise. It was me. It was, I think, obviously my background as a, well, I won't say professional footballer, because I guess it wasn't the habits that I had.
I've seen you in goal, mate. You are.
Well, yeah. I
love Arsenal. I'll take
it. Yeah. So I think it's like you almost use your upbringing, and you use like the things that you have as a kid, or the habits or the lessons that you learned as a kid that you probably lay dormant for ages. And obviously, like I luckily managed to find it through exercise and in the gym. And then it was just like you said, that thing about internally or mentally pushing yourself when every fiber in your body is going, fuck it, let's go home. Like we can come back another day. And it's just like just like whether you're on the treadmill and it's like you're at 42 minutes and 50, and it's like, oh, I've got to get to 45. Let's finish on a round number. And then it's like, oh, fuck it, let's get to 50. Or let's get to an hour. And it's like, so that's how you constantly end up pushing yourself a little bit more and a little bit more. And then you do it. And you don't really think about it much at the time, but there'll be some point in that evening, next day, that next week, where you go, if you just do it, if you just be able to push yourself mentally and think you can do it, your body will do it. Yeah. And and then you feel so much better, because you've reached that physical barrier, but you haven't reached that mental barrier, and it's your mind that's been able to push you on. And then I said that the fitness thing to me, that was the building blocks for my transition into everything else in life. Like the sporting element of things, it taught me that, fucking hell, if I apply myself, not only am I changing physically, and like obviously like with how underweight I was when I first started at the gym, I did like balloon very quick. It was like 18 months I put on 5.5 stone, and it was like, just, I think it's the easiest way to get them quick wins, to see that progress, to make yourself feel better. And it's like, right, okay, if I can do that in the gym, what else can I apply that to? And obviously the same things apply for work, for relationships, and obviously for what goes on upstairs as well. If you want better, you have to do better, you have to plan it, and then you have to keep on doing it. And it's like, that kind of shit isn't sexy. That doesn't sell in a plan on Instagram. It's like, oh, buy this for in 30 days, you'll look fucking amazing. It's like
Yeah,
when you're playing with mental health and you're trying to get yourself back on the straight and narrow, it's not sexy, but it's fucking hard work. It's
yeah,
fucking hard work and consistently, and then every so often it's pushing that boundary and that mental fortitude and toughness that you get. You reach that point where you're just like, I can cope with this now.
mm,
Like, I can cope. And I think, like you said, that how you've explained it today is exactly how I've realised it in my own experience, just in a little bit different. But
mm,
the stories are different, the habits are the same, the self sabotage thing was the same, and the recovery
yeah.
seems to be the same thing. And obviously, like what I
Remember
do now,
stories when you broke your leg. Well, you've had a couple of breaks in your legs, I remember, but
yeah, yeah,
like how down you got, in your mental health at the time.
hmm
And then I remember you sort of getting yourself out of that state. Sorry, I hope you don't mind me bringing it up.
no, you go for it.
You was just thinking to yourself, okay, well, I can't use my legs. But then I remember you doing all the training programs with your arms and your chest, and you just
Yeah,
like, okay, I might not be able to use the lower part of my body, but I can still work on the top half of my body. And I remember you
yeah,
doing the training sessions in your flat and stuff like that. And you don't think it, but even if you're like watching it from the outside in, it does, stick in your mind, because that was what, 3 years ago, 4 years
yeah,
ago, when it
yeah.
was, and it's still, I remember it now, as a part of when I was looking at it thinking, Jesus, that geezer, he must have some sort of strong mind, because how many times you got to break your legs when you especially have a passion in being a goalkeeper and you are bloody good, and it's something you love and enjoy, and then something comes and takes that away from you. And I think that's the whole point of trying to get stronger and trying to get back on track. Because I wasn't really going to mention this, but I am going to say it. But one of the breaking points for myself was, um, just before I started on the sobriety, I went out on this massive binge, and effectively, my friends at the time left me on my own. And I remember, must have been about, I don't know, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. As soon as the Tesco's Express opened, and I went in there and I bought a bottle of vodka and 4 cans, and I had some cocaine on me, stuff like that. And I was sitting on the beach, and I was dressed up all swag, you know what I mean? Nice jacket, jeans, nice brand shoes on, and all that. Next minute, I remember is three policemen rushing into the water and fishing me out, and then taking me to an ambulance, and they stripped me down and wrapped me in this silver foil. Do you know what I mean? And they stuck me in suicide watch for about 3 days. Now, I'm not going to say that I tried to commit suicide, because I think even though I did what I did for 30 years, I don't think I'd ever had the guts to do something like that. And plus the fact I love my family, too much to think that I would be capable of doing something like that. But
hmm
something made me walk to the end of the pier, which was a long way out. I mean, it's not a small pier. And this lady that was walking her dog first thing in the morning saw me jump off the pier into the sea, and fully clothed. And it took the police to actually fish me out of the water. I mean, I was in there, my phone, my keys, my glasses, everything on. I'm laughing about it now because it's just, thinking about it, it's a bit crazy. But the fact is, it came to the point where it got that serious. The fact is, whatever was going through my mind at that time, I ended up in the sea. I ended up in the sea fully clothed. I was put in suicide watch 3 days. It is something that I'm never going to forget. And to actually sit there and tell your son, do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Partner, what can you say? Dad, how did you end up in there? I can't keep saying, well, it's the drink and the drugs and everything else, because every time I was doing something, the situation got worse. And I do honestly believe that maybe if things hadn't changed the way they did, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here having a conversation with you now. And that's a true fact, because it got to the point where I couldn't remember what I was doing, you know, whether it was to myself or to someone else. And that's how bad it got.
Christ, yeah, I said that's. I'm glad you shared that. Obviously, I know you said about you.
I wasn't really going to.
Yeah, but that's Yeah, like I said, it's difficult because obviously, like on a different side to me. Obviously, when I was 21, obviously being in the hospital, and obviously I went through that stage of when I was 5.5 stone. It was like if I got up too quick, just sitting on the sofa, I'd pass out. If I got up in the middle of the night, and obviously if I got up and go for a wee, if I got up too quick, there'd be some times where I'd wake up on the bathroom floor. I don't know how long had gone because I didn't have my phone on me, but I just wake up in the bathroom floor. Obviously, in the middle of the night, my mum and dad are asleep, and that happened. To be honest with you, I don't even know. I don't even know how, but it was a common occurrence. And obviously, it happened. I passed out in the kitchen. Obviously, we had like a marble like floor. So obviously, me hitting my head on that. Obviously, like bringing the police, bringing the ambulance, and obviously end up going into hospital. And I remember my parents having to sign the do not resuscitate form
Mm.
at 21, and it was just like, do you remember like my mum? See, my mum and dad took like the good cop bad cop approach, and it was like you're gonna die, like you're gonna
Mm.
die, like do you want to die? And it was like no, like again, I was completely just I had no emotion. It was like them
Yeah.
telling me that I never wanted to die, but I was just numb to
Yeah.
like you got doctors telling you, and you got your parents whose probably worst fear of being a parent is
To lose
your
that
child,
child.
yeah, your child dying, and it's
Mm.
like what I was doing was I was circling the drain essentially. And if obviously when you're that low, when your body fat's that low and your internal organs are struggling that much, you are such a high risk of cardiac arrest. And if that happened, they wouldn't have attempted to revive me. And it was just like I remember going in the therapy sessions. It was saying about like so you feel suicidal. It was like no. I don't know. I don't. It's not that I don't want to be here. They're like, well, what you do know what you're doing is basically like slow suicide, and it was like hadn't really I hadn't really thought of it. I hadn't really thought of it like that, and I don't know if that like applied to you, but obviously, like I never, like you said, you never had them feelings of not wanting to be here. But obviously, what you're doing, like you said, whether you wanted to do it that day and it was just a spur of the moment thing, or it was just a thing where you were so out of it that you didn't know what you were doing. Like you
That,
said it, and I think, like it's one of them things whereby if there is someone up there or the universe does work in mysterious ways, like that was your that was your epiphany moment, wasn't it?
yeah.
That woman was supposed to be there at
Yeah.
that time. She was supposed to get up at that time. She was supposed to be with a dog. She was supposed to see you out of character and have the intuition to go,
Mm.
like that isn't right. Because yeah, like you said, fuck knows what could have happened had she not have
Yeah.
been there. Like you
It's
said,
not
these
that because when I wasn't obviously if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't be sitting here. You wouldn't have any sort of idea of what grief you've left behind. Do you understand? That's what I sort of say with it's not so much about the person that's doing the attempt, it's about the people you leave behind. And when I told my son, obviously I told him face to face, it's not really something you tell him over the phone.
mm,
It's the first time actually that I saw a massive disappointment and upset in my son's face when I told him. Not just the fact that he never thought his dad would ever try something like that, but it was like, why would you leave me? Why would you, what have I done wrong that you would do something like that? And
yeah,
and and the kids, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I mean, obviously Riley, my youngest grandson, he wasn't born then, but little Casey, do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, he would have missed me. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
So it was that, and I think build up to that, and then obviously having that last binge, because that wasn't my last binge. I mean, that's the saddest thing. Even after being on that suicide watch, I still had two massive blowouts before it came to the point of that's it.
mm,
And it's to see that in your son's face. Do you know what I mean? Kill me. Do you know what I mean? So and that's me being still here. If something had gone wrong and I weren't here, I would have broke that kid's heart. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And what for? For a line and a drink.
yeah,
So a lot of what I was going through and a lot of what I build up, even though I wasn't physically hurting my son, like my dad hurt me. You know what I mean? And this is why I will say I wasn't the perfect person. The things that I was doing were still having a detrimental effect
yeah,
on my son, whether it's emotionally, yeah, or Yeah, emotionally. I mean, emotional abuse is still abuse, whether it's
Yeah.
physical, emotional, whatever. So
Yeah, but obviously the thing that separates you from obviously your dad and like and Stuart and stuff is that you've been able to luckily be here to not right wrongs, because I don't want to say that, but you've been able to show them, like, through all that shit that you've had to deal with, you come out the other side and you're clean, and you're providing, and you're an example of people who can go through shit and it doesn't define them. It can
yeah,
take a big chapter of their life, but it doesn't take the book. Like,
yeah,
that you can still be able to, right, okay, like, yeah, that was shit, that was shit, that was shit. Like anything in life, well, no matter how bad things are, what lessons can you take out of it?
yeah. And
That's
I've
it.
better. I generally feel, younger, stronger. My mind's back to being a bit sharper. I mean, obviously, I'm getting older, so it's not going to be like it was when I was younger. But I've never felt so good. Using the gym, something I've never done, losing the weight, and it's not just that as well. It's the weirdest thing is, it's people that you least expect to reach out. I mean, I'm still in a circle that I still have a social life, but it doesn't involve drink or anything else like
Yep.
that. Even though people I'm still with might be doing that, doesn't
Yep.
bother me. But I was getting messages off men and women that I've known for years saying, Dave, how proud they are of me. You know what I mean? Not that I was never an aggressive drunk. I never went out and started fights and whatever, but I was a little bit too, like, in people's faces, if you know what I mean. But
More
never,
stressful. Yeah.
yeah. But, the people that reached out to me, and this is a big thing about the sobriety page, is the fact that when I started doing this, it was never me telling people how to do this, how to do that. It's all about my journey. And
Yeah.
my page is very honest. If I have shit days, I tell them I had shit days, you know what I mean? And I let them know how I'm feeling. But a lot of mine is about projecting the positivity now, because I feel positive, because I look in the mirror and I like myself now, James. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
I like myself now. I check myself out. I mean, 51, nearly 52 years of age, with the weight I've lost and everything else, and my silver fox hair, and I'll check myself out and I think, bloody hell, mate, you're gonna have a good second half of your life. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I've got the security, and I've got the home, and I've got the family. So beginning to enjoy it and see it through sober eyes, like going on holiday. Since I've been sober, I've been on a few holidays, not drinking on a plane, not going to an all-inclusive and drinking because it's there. You
Mm.
understand? I've become a new designated cab driver now.
Mm.
It's like, and Jesus, can I just say something? I hate drunks. I mean, the conversations they have are so repetitive, and
Mhm.
that's me. And I think,
Yeah.
oh, days, I can't, earplugs.
But yeah, no, I think that's it. The whole, there's so many things that have aligned with what you're doing and what I'm doing. It's just through different areas. I think, like you said, the sobriety page was obviously what I started as the transformation page, to make myself accountable, to make
Mm,
sure that I never went back. And like you said, mine was obviously just sharing workouts to make myself get bigger, to like myself, and obviously that snowballed into something that I
yeah,
never thought imaginable. And like you said, it's almost like, it's not that you're like Jesus or whatever, but it seems like there are people that appreciate everything that you're doing,
yeah,
and that validation in regards to, like, I'm not just doing this for me. There are other people there that are fucking rooting for me. I don't even know them. Like, I have a social media relationship with them. I don't know them,
yeah,
but they're the ones that I post something and they're on it straight away. And they'll message me, mate, love that. That's really good. Like, fair play to you. And it's
yeah,
like, that is where, like, that the progress you make, it's you're not only changing your life, you're changing your family, your social circle, and the people that you touch on social media. And I think, like they always say about, like, a problem shared is a problem halved, and getting people talking. It is like pages like yours that are, you're being, like you said, about, you don't give people advice, you just share your life. And I think that authenticity is what people need. People don't need bullshit of being
mm,
like, yeah, if you want to do that, do this, do this, do that. I did this, and look at me now, like, hard at heart. Like, that isn't authentic. People are going to see through that as bullshit. I think, like, just being, like, open, honest, and raw,
mm,
and explaining the dark times, but also celebrating the good times.
yeah,
And I think that's, like you said, that literally sums up life. That literally
yeah,
sums up life. yeah. So, like I said, it's been a pleasure. I say, you and I have known each other for ages, but to delve deep,
Yeah.
into your story, and like you said, I'm sure there are hundreds of thousands of people that we've probably got on our social medias, the pair of us combined, that are probably just another one of you and I's. Like we know each other. We've spoken for a number of years, but
Mm.
to actually like sit down and talk about raw shit, and
Yeah.
but it feels good. It feels good. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's just, I'm sure there's gonna be so many people that resonate with this, and like I say, I hope it can snowball. Hope it can snowball, and people feel obliged to pay it forward, and go and speak to someone and
And
share
understand
their
it's
story.
not something to be ashamed of. Do you know what I mean? It's really not. You know what
No,
I mean? I think that's the more of a thing that is like you feel ashamed. You think like because you're a man or whatever, you have to be this, exterior. You don't. I mean, if you want to have a cry, have a cry.
yeah,
I've cried more in the last 10 months than I have in the last
me too.
30 years. But
It's funny. I used to take the piss out of my dad for years when he used to go watch like one of the like the vet programs or 24 hours in A&E, and I was like, I'd be watching it. It's like, oh, fucking that's sad. I'd look over and my dad's like crying his eyes out. It's like, what do you do, Dad? I've literally turned into my dad. But then
yeah,
it's like you said, this idea of being like alpha male is like, don't show emotion, bottle shit up, get shit done. It's just like, no, like
no,
people like obviously because I go to the gym and obviously I look after myself. Like I can lift a shit ton of weight if I want to. I can make myself look like an alpha male. I can also come home and cry on my missus' shoulder when I'm having a shit day.
yeah,
Does that make me any less of a man? I don't think it is. I think it's
no,
to be able to lift heavy shit, provide support, and also be in touch and in tune with your emotions. Whereby the reason why you're crying is that you need to let it out. You need to
yeah.
vent. So if
And
you're self,
as well that you've been through in your life. You know what I mean? So you become a bit sort of softer because I'm not drunk all the time now and all that. My emotions are a little bit, even though I have a lot more control, but they're a little bit more heightened.
yeah,
So if something, it's not stupid to say this, but if I'm watching something like I don't know a soap or an X Factor, and they're talking about a story where someone's died of cancer or something like that, I straight away think of my parents, and that does then upset me, and then I'm quite happy to let my emotions out now, where before I wasn't. So
Mm.
feel better after. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I think that's the whole point. It's like you're releasing like things that need to come out, and it's like to me to be able to own that and accept it and let it out. That's strength. That's not weakness. Weakness is masking it up. Like
yeah,
you and I both know what happens when you mask shit up. Like over time, it manifests itself in destructive ways. So if you need to cry, have a fucking cry. Like it doesn't make you any less of a man. So
no,
yeah, yeah. So we'll leave it on that point. But honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure.
cheers,
And
appreciate it.
yeah, I think it's like you said. I think like anyone else, I will be there, the voice, and just say I think you should be incredibly
Thank,
proud of yourself.
thank you very much. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah. So hope you guys liked and listened, and obviously like, share, spread far and wide, and yeah, we'll see what happens on the next episode. So yeah,
Lovely.
thanks for watching, guys. See you
Cheers. Thank
later.